Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So let's start with the class today. Good evening. Now, hopefully, everything is okay. Audio, video is clear. No black screen. No background noises. Good evening. All right. So let's start with today's class. All right. So. Uh, if we can recall back, yesterday we did the placement of the ECG leads, and that was important because not only for your exams but for also the clinical application. Key at which position of the heart these ECG leads are placed, because we want to see a particular side of the heart, for example myocardial infarction. So we will focus on that particular leads which are near to that heart wall. Now moving on to the components of the ECG. Components of the ECG. The first component of the ECG is starting with the P wave, and this yesterday we tried to cover, but because of the some streaming problem we were not able to complete this P wave. So starting with the basic number 6, and basic number 6 is the P wave. So those who are finding it a black screen, they can log out and log in again. Now coming to the P wave, and starting with what we will do, first we'll discuss the normal descriptions, then we go to the pathologies. So first is the P wave, normal description of the P wave, that is in lead 2 for the vertical activity. And why we are picking the lead 2? Because lead 2 is best to study. It is a vertical lead, best lead to study the activity of P wave, activity of the atria or activity of the ventricle, because it is in the line of the normal depolarization of atria and ventricles. So starting with the normal P wave in lead 2 for the vertical activity, and these are the dimensions. Dimensions means the width. You can see the width. Normal width is less than 2.5 millimeters. So for convenience point of view, I will take the units in millimeters because it will be easy to remember. So the normal width is 2.5 mm and normal height is less than 2.5 mm. So the width will be determined by left atria and the height will be determined by the right atria respectively. So again, is there any problem? All right, so let's understand. It's okay now? All right. So this is so if we will understand why height is determined by the right atria and why the width is determined by the left atria. So reason is, if we will see a vertical plane of the atria because of their anatomical positions, and we all know from yesterday's lecture that the vector of lead 2 is like this. This is the lead 2 vector. So this is the positive pole of lead 2. This is a positive pole of the lead 2. Now here is the right atria like this. Right atria, and this is the left atria. All right, so now it is clear. All right, fine. So both audio and video is all right. Okay, fine. All right. Now coming to the P wave. So the P wave normally in lead 2. So if you can see at the diagram, this is the position of the right atria, and left atrial position is something like this. Left atria. So if you can see, the right atria is slightly anterior and left atria is slightly posterior. There is an anatomical. They are not parallel. The right atria is slightly anterior and left atria is slightly posterior. So what happens when we'll see the right atrial depolarization net? This direction is like this. This is a right atrial depolarization direction in a vertical plane. Understand carefully. In a vertical plane, the direction of depolarization of the right atria is exactly towards the lead 2. So you can see this component will be responsible for the amplitude of P wave. So this depolarization of the right atria, because it is coming directly towards the lead 2 positive pole, so this will be responsible for height or amplitude of the P wave in lead 2. Green color is the vector line of lead 2. Now the left atrial depolarization, because of its anatomical position, is like this. This is the net depolarization direction of the left atria. Going like this, and you can see this depolarization of the left atria in relation to the lead 2 vector. It will be responsible for time taken by the P wave to develop in the lead 2 ECG lead. So this will be responsible for duration of P in the lead 2. Look at the depolarization of the left atria. So it will take time. It will be responsible for the time of P wave in lead 2. So this is the reason, because of the positioning of our atria in a vertical plane. So these are the normal dimensions. So what will be the clinical implication in the ECG? Clinical implication is, whenever there is a right atrial enlargement, height will increase of P wave, and whenever there is a left atrial enlargement, the width of P will increase in lead 2. So these will be your focus areas. What will you see in the ECG if respective atria enlargement is being seen? Now come to, so this was the lead 2. Now come to the V1. Second point is, if you can see this diagram, right atria depolarization, look at the vertical arrow, the red colored arrow. This is the depolarization of the right atria, and this line is green line is lead 2. It is lead 2. So the depolarization of the right atria is coming towards the lead 2, responsible for amplitude or the height, while left atrial depolarization is in this direction. And if you can see, compared with lead 2 vector, it will be responsible for time taken by the P wave. Time taken means width of the P wave, width of the P wave in lead 2. Now moving on to the V1. So we come to the V1 ECG lead. Normally in lead V1, and lead V1 is basically for the horizontal activity determination. And what is the horizontal activity? Horizontal activity is endo to epicardium. It will be endo to epicardium. So this will be seen in lead V1 for the horizontal activity. Now let's see the lead V1 in relation to our chest wall. So here is the right atria, and I am taking a cross section. So just visualize, I am taking a cross section at the atrial level, transverse section at the atrial level. So this is right atria and this is left atria, and here is the chest wall. Chest wall. So understand carefully the cross section. Right atria is anterior anatomically. If you can remember the anatomy, right atria is anterior and left atria is posterior and to the left side. So this is a transverse section. This is a transverse section at the level of atria. So the V1 ECG lead. Here is the V1 ECG lead. This point is the sternum and here is V1. Here is the V1 ECG lead which is placed. Placement of the ECG lead on the chest we have done. It is right of the sternum. And whatever this square you are seeing, it is just the sternum which is there. Now anatomically, if you can visualize this diagram, very important, this is an anatomical diagram. Now what will happen, in the first lecture we have seen that the right atria is depolarized first, followed by the left atria. So what happens, the depolarization in a horizontal plane is endo to epicardium. So this is the endocardial part of the right atria, or inner part of the right atria, endocardial part, and this is the epicardial part. So if I will see the depolarization direction of right atria in a horizontal plane, this is the direction. Look at the arrow, red colored arrow. Depolarization of right atria, endocardium to epicardium. Endocardium to epicardium, and this wave or depolarization wave is coming towards the V1, So this will produce a positive deflection in the V1. So right atria depolarization will produce a positive deflection, while the left atrial depolarization is in this direction. So this is a depolarization of the left atria, and this is the depolarization of right atria. So what will happen in V1? The first component will be due to the right atrial depolarization. So it will show a positive deflection. While if you can visualize anatomically, the left atrial depolarization is going away. It is going away from V1, away from the V1. So it will show a negative deflection. It will show a negative deflection respectively. So therefore, based on this diagram, anatomical diagram, in lead V1, we will get to see a P wave which is like this. First part will be due to right atrial depolarization, and second part will be due to left atrial depolarization. So it is a biphasic. It is a biphasic diagram. Biphasic diagram. So it will show the first one as the positive, and the next deflection will be negative. Next deflection will be negative. So repeating it once again, look at the diagram. The right atria and left atria. First the right atria depolarized, so the depolarization wave will be coming towards the V1. It will produce a positive deflection. While the left atrial depolarization is going away from, it is going towards the left axilla, and V1 is here, so it is going away from the V1 ECG lead, and it will show a negative deflection. Negative deflection. Yes, so negative deflection because it is going away. It is in the horizontal plane. It is going towards the left axilla, and V1 is placed on the right side. So it will show a negative deflection. So these are the normal ECG or normal P wave in particular leads. And no one will going to will ask you what are the dimensions of these biphasic P wave in V1. No one will ask you. They will just ask you in which lead normally you will get a biphasic P wave. Answer is V1. Answer is the V1. Now coming to, remember the morphology of P wave is different in different leads because of their placements and because of their whether they are detecting a vertical plane or a horizontal plane like this. Now come to the abnormalities of P wave. Abnormalities of the P wave. So normal we have discussed. Why only these two leads? Because they best represent the P wave morphology. Now coming to the abnormalities of the P wave. So the first abnormality of the P wave is number one. You can write it down in your notes. Number one abnormality is P wave is absent. Lead AVR is negative. It is whole negative P wave. Now coming to the abnormalities of the P wave. The first abnormality is P wave is absent. So P wave is absent means we are not able to see the P wave in the ECG. So the causes of absent P wave causes. Number one. Number one cause. So the number one cause of P wave. Number one cause of the P wave is, I will give you the hint. This is a rhythm when atria and ventricles depolarize simultaneously. Atria and ventricle depolarize simultaneously. This is one of the rhythm. This rhythm is occur when AV node becomes the pacemaker. Yes, this is known as the junctional rhythm. Yes, this is known as the junctional rhythm. So the first cause is junctional rhythm. Junction rhythm. because what happens from the AV node, the impulse will go above and below simultaneously, and both atria and ventricle will be depolarized at the same time, known as the junctional rhythm. And we have done, whenever two events are taking place simultaneously, larger event will hide a smaller event. So here QRS will be hiding the P wave, QRS will be hiding the P wave. Now number 2 is when there is asynchronized atrial depolarization. So all the fibers are not depolarizing at the same time. Each fiber is depolarizing independent of each other like this. This is a case of the atrial fibrillation. The second cause of absent P wave is because of asynchronized atrial depolarization, atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation. Third one, P wave can also be absent, and this we will discuss later on. This you can just write it down, PSVT. Paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. Paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, that we will discuss in the arrhythmia section. Now, number 4, and very important indeed, questions come on this number 4th cause. Number 4th cause is electrolyte imbalance. Electrolyte imbalance which inhibit the atrial depolarization. So by inhibiting atrial depolarization, so obviously P wave will become less in amplitude and ultimately disappear. It disappear. So this is seen in cases of the electrolyte imbalance, hyperkalemia, So this causes the decrease in the P wave and ultimately disappear. But how it occur? How it will occur? So that we will discuss, because we have left one basic 5. So that we will be discussing later on, and in that we will see how the electrolyte imbalances affect the ECG. And most important electrolyte imbalance is the potassium changes, high potassium and low potassium. So that we will discuss in basic 5, which we reserve for the end to discuss the electrolyte imbalance. So there are 4 causes of the absent P waves: junctional rhythm, atrial fibrillation, PSVT and hyperkalemia. In the ECG we will not be able to see the P waves. So coming to the number 2 abnormality of the P wave. What will happen to atrial repolarization in the junctional rhythm? They will be hidden by the ventricle repolarization. They will be hidden by the ventricle repolarization. Now coming to number 2 abnormality. Number 2 abnormality. So if P wave in V1 is biphasic, the net will be 0. Yes, it will be 0, almost 0. Now coming to the number 2 abnormality, and number 2 abnormality of the P wave is starting with the history. Remember, whenever any ECG question come, my advice to you is you make a sequence. You always start with the history, clinical information, then try to make your differential diagnosis, then see the options, and then go to the diagram. What mistake we do? We start with the diagram only, so that will create a problem. So therefore, whenever any ECG question you are dealing with, the sequence of solving the ECG question is very important. Sequence of ECG questions. First sequence is always the clinical history. After that, you make your differential diagnosis, ki what you are expecting. Then look at the options given in your MCQs. Look at the options and then look at the ECG. So that you can focus कि if out of all the 12 leads, which lead you will focus upon and what will you see, what are you expecting. So that will be only decided by the clinical history. So make this a sequence, not the reverse one. Reverse one, you will not be able to solve the ECG questions. So first will be clinical history, make your differential diagnosis, then see, look at the options in the question and then go for the ECG diagram. So with this, the second P wave abnormality is the clinical history is given to you. So the clinical history is there is a history of mitral stenosis. Mitral stenosis. So the mitral stenosis, how will you diagnose? It will be given in the question as well as, or you can see there will be a mid diastolic murmur at apex. So this will be the clinical information for mitral stenosis. There will be a mid diastolic murmur at the apex. Then mitral regurgitation will be given to you in the MCQ as a clinical information, and mitral regurgitation is a pan-systolic murmur. At apex. Pan-systolic murmur at the apex, mitral regurgitation, or systemic hypertension will be given to you, systemic hypertension. So these are the clinical clues which will be given to you in the exams. Mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, or systemic hypertension. Now, what will be our conclusion or differential diagnosis in our mind? Our differential diagnosis will be because of mitral stenosis, left atria enlarge. Because of mitral regurgitation, left atria enlarge. Because of systemic hypertension, first left ventricle hypertrophy will be there and left atrial enlargement will be there. So all these three clinical information, our answer will be, we will be looking at left atrial enlargement. So this will be the differential diagnosis in your mind. Differential diagnosis, yes, it will be a left-sided lesion. So this will produce a left atrial enlargement. Now coming to, all right, so from the clinical history, we will make a differential diagnosis that there is a left atrial enlargement. Now what we will think now? We will look at the two leads, either lead 2 or V1, and we have done the normal P wave in lead 2 and V1. So whenever we are thinking of left atrial enlargement, now you focus on how systemic hypertension causes the left atrial enlargement. Systemic hypertension first will cause left ventricle hypertrophy, give a pressure on the left ventricle, and the pressure of the left ventricle will go to the left atria because the pressure goes retrogradely because of systemic hypertension. Now coming to the left atrial enlargement, you are thinking, so focus on lead 2 or focus on lead V1. So just look at these two leads only. In the 12 lead ECG, focus on lead 2. So in the lead 2, obviously the width will increase. In lead 2, P wave width will be, all right. Now is it clear? All right. Okay, fine. So the second abnormality of the P wave is due to left atrial enlargement. And how the left atrial enlargement will be there because of the mitral stenosis and mitral regurgitation, or maybe systemic hypertension. Systemic hypertension. So whenever there is some atrial pathology, we will focus on two leads. Focus on lead 2 and focus on lead V1. This will be the two leads that we will be focusing upon. So therefore in lead 2 we will check for the width. If we are suspecting a left atrial enlargement, we will see the width of P wave will increase. So here the P wave width will be more than 2.5 mm. More than 2.5 mm. This will be the P wave width. And how it is changing? It is changing because of usually the mitral valve pathologies. So therefore P wave width more than 5 mm is known by a name of a sign known as P mitral. P mitral. So width will be increased. Normal width was 2.5 mm, so it will become more than 2.5, and this is known as the P mitral. While in a lead V1, you have seen above that the negative component of P is determined by left atrial depolarization in V1 in a horizontal plane. So therefore we will look at the negative component. So here the area of negative component will increase. Area of the negative component of P wave will be increased. And how the area is determined? So the area is determined as follows, and this is an important name of the sign as well. So this is the, say, a positive component, and this is the negative component of P wave. So you can see the negative component relatively become more in area because of the left atrial depolarization due to left atrial enlargement. So the area is determined by the width multiplied by depth. So I will say depth multiplied by width. So this is the depth of P wave. Depth of the P wave, and I will take the depth in millimeters. Depth is in millimeters, and then I will multiply it by width. This is the width. Depth multiplied by width, and I will take the unit in seconds. So W is width, D is depth. So I will multiply these two and I will get the unit in millimeter second. So this is the area of the negative component, and if it is more than 0.04, if it is 0.04 millimeter second, this is known as Morris index positive. This is the name of the sign, Morris index positive, a very important sign indicating left atrial enlargement. Now, moving on to the third abnormality of P wave. Width is taken in seconds. Yes, they have taken the width in seconds and depth in millimeters. So they change the units here. They have changed the units here. Now, come to number third. And number third is, I will start with the clinical history. So number third abnormality of P wave, there is a history of tricuspid stenosis. tricuspid stenosis is there, and how it will be tricuspid stenosis with mid diastolic murmur at tricuspid area. Mid diastolic murmur at the tricuspid area. Or history of tricuspid regurgitation is given. Tricuspid regurgitation is pansystolic murmur at tricuspid area. Or very importantly, pulmonary hypertension is mentioned. What will pulmonary hypertension do? Pulmonary hypertension will cause right ventricle hypertrophy, right ventricle pressure increase, and those right ventricle pressure will go to the right atria, causing right atrial enlargement. So all these three histories will make it the right atrial enlargement, and pulmonary hypertension is due to COPD. One of the cause of the pulmonary hypertension is due to COPD, and because of that pulmonary hypertension there is a right ventricle enlargement first, and that will cause right atrial enlargement. So see the sequence, see the chronology, that due to COPD there is a pulmonary hypertension, and because of the pulmonary hypertension first chamber effect will be right ventricle obviously, and from the right ventricle right atria will get enlarged. Here the right ventricle enlargement due to pulmonary hypertension created by COPD is known by a name, and that pathology is known as cor pulmonale. That pathology is known as the cor pulmonale. Yes, it is cor pulmonale. Now, all these histories, tricuspid stenosis, tricuspid regurgitation, and pulmonary hypertension due to any cause, will lead to right atrial enlargement. So our answer or differential diagnosis in our mind will be the right atrial enlargement. Right atrial enlargement. So this differential diagnosis I have made in my mind. Now I will focus on two ECG leads, and these leads will be lead 2 and V1. So to focus on two leads, lead 2 and lead V1. Lead V1. How COPD cause pulmonary hypertension? By causing hypoxia, chronic hypoxia. All of you know. And what does chronic hypoxia do to the pulmonary vessel? It causes pulmonary vasoconstriction, chronic hypoxia. And pulmonary vasoconstriction means pulmonary hypertension. Now, lead 2 we will focus upon, and this will produce the enlargement of height. So the P wave height will be more than 2.5 mm. So here the height will increase. Height will increase in the lead 2, and right atrial enlargement majority of the cases are due to the COPD. Remember, due to cor pulmonale. Main causes rather than tricuspid stenosis or tricuspid regurgitation, main reason is COPD induced cor pulmonale. Therefore, this sign is known as P pulmonale. P pulmonale. So this sign, P wave height more than 2.5 mm, is P pulmonale. Now in lead V1, so in the lead V1, area of positive component increases. It will increase. Area of positive component will increase like this in the diagram. P wave. So the area of positive component will be determined by the height and width HW, because it is determined by right area. So the area will increase, and the area will be calculated as the height multiplied by width. And if it is more than 0.06 millimeter second, this is right atrial enlargement, and these are fact based questions. Unfortunately, till now you will get some fact based questions of these enlargements. So right atrial enlargement 0.06 millimeter second, area of the positive component. Call it as right atrial enlargement. There is no sign given to this formula, for this formula in the right atrial enlargement. So these are the descriptions of the P wave. Nothing else will come in your exam besides these concepts of the P wave, abnormalities of the P wave. This complete your P wave here. Now come to the next portion of the ECG, and next portion of the ECG is the PR interval. How stenosis causes the enlargement? If the blood flow outlet is stenosed, blood flow outlet is stenosed, like mitral stenosis, tricuspid stenosis, that chamber will enlarge. The chamber will enlarge. Now coming to why area is positive, because positive component is determined by right atrial depolarization, right atrial depolarization. Now come to the next one, and the next is the PR interval. Next is the PR interval. Sawtooth P wave we will be discussing later on. That will be in the atrial flutter. Atrial flutter. Now come to the PR interval. So first we should understand how to calculate a PR interval. So this is the diagram. So this is PR interval. This is calculated from, you can see the diagram. First look at the diagram carefully, because more you look at the diagrams, more it will retain in your memory. Because in the exam, when you see these ECG, you get confused because you have no practice of seeing the ECG. So visualize these ECG. So the PR interval, it starts how to calculate the PR interval. PR interval is calculated from the start of the P wave. Remember, very important, start of P. Start of the P wave, and it is till the beginning of QRS or start of QRS complex. Start of the QRS complex. So this is the PR interval, start of P till the start of QRS complex. And some of you might be asking, then why it is known as the PQ interval? Because in the QRS complex, the first wave is Q wave. So it is also a standardization that sometime in QRS complex you might not get a Q wave. It is start with the R wave only. So whatever is the starting point of QRS complex, whether it is a Q wave or the R wave, that is PR interval. That is PR interval, just for standardizations. So what is the normal width of this PR interval? Let's understand. Normal PR interval, it is ranging from 0.12, it is 0.12 to 0.20 seconds. And if in millimeters, we'll see 3 to 5 millimeters. 3 to 5 millimeters will be the answer if it is in millimeters. Now the PR interval is mainly determined by conduction in AV node. PR interval is determined by the AV node, by the conduction in the AV node, and it is physiologically slowest conducting tissue in the heart. So it is mainly determined by conduction in the AV node, which is the physiologically slowest conducting tissue in the heart. So the abnormality. So after the normal PR interval, we move to the abnormalities of PR interval. So there will be two abnormalities. First abnormality is PR interval get prolonged, and second is it gets shortens. There will be two problems there in the abnormality of PR interval. So first abnormality, let's see. Abnormalities of PR interval. So the first abnormality is a prolonged PR interval. It get increased. And how will you assess in a very quick, fast manner that it is prolonged in the ECG? Because in the exam time is very, very less. So it will be more than 0.20 seconds or more than 5 mm. So what you do, you look at the PR interval, and if it is more than one big square width, it is prolonged. It is prolonged. One big square, because one big square width was 5 mm. So in a fast manner, you can read that PR interval is prolonged, because it is very fast to read the big squares rather than counting the small squares. So this is one of the trick to know that PR interval is prolonged. And why it will be prolonged? There is only one reason. Prolonged causes will be AV blocks. Due to AV block, AV node is blocked, the conduction is slowed down, so it will increase the PR interval. Conduction is slowed down. So the causes of the conduction of AV node getting slowed down, first cause is the electrolyte imbalance. And one of the electrolyte imbalance, can anyone tell me which electrolyte imbalance inhibit AV node depolarization? One big square is 25 mm. No, wrong. It is 5 mm. In the first lecture we have seen. In which lead do we look for the PR interval? Whichever lead is given to you, but if you have to ask one particular lead, then it is lead 2, obviously, because that is the best lead to study the ECG. Yes, very nice. It will be the low potassium. It inhibits the AV node depolarization, and you will be surprised to know that even high potassium does the same thing. So both hyperkalemia and hypokalemia have similar effect. They cause PR interval prolongation, and this we will discuss in the electrolyte imbalance, how they affect the ECG. Low potassium and high potassium. Sodium deficiency, no. Sodium deficiency does not affect the ECG usually. Now come to the drugs. Drugs are very easy. They inhibit AV node. Beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, obviously non-DHP. Non-DHP, they will cause the AV block, as well as digoxin. Beta blockers, CCBs, and digoxin. They will cause AV block. PR interval will get prolonged. Myocarditis, yes, myocarditis can affect inflammation of AV node also. Myocarditis is inflammation, edema, and if that inflammation and edema spread to the AV node, conduction will reduce. So myocarditis. Infiltrative disorders. So infiltrative disorders include the amyloidosis, because it is a poor conductor of current. Non-DHP, DHP dihydropyridine. Non-DHP is non-dihydropyridine group which include the diltiazem and verapamil. Non-dihydropyridines, verapamil and diltiazem. Now, infiltrative disorders. Infiltrative disorders are like amyloidosis. Amyloid is a poor conductor of current. And of course, age-related degeneration of AV node. Age-related degeneration. So obviously the conduction will slow down. So these are the causes of important causes of the AV blockage. Yes, any drugs which leads to AV node conduction inhibition, they will be responsible for prolonged PR interval. DHP type of calcium channel blocker is this nifedipine and amlodipine. Rheumatic heart disease will come in the myocarditis section, and example of this myocarditis, one of the example is acute rheumatic fever. Acute rheumatic fever. So this acute rheumatic fever will cause AV block, prolonged PR interval. Now correlate. All of you must have read Jones criteria of rheumatic fever, and in the Jones criteria of rheumatic fever, one of the criteria was PR interval prolonged. Minor criteria, Jones minor criteria. This is the reason the Jones minor criteria in the acute rheumatic fever. Now come to the second abnormality, and second abnormality is PR interval get reduced or shortens. So number 2 abnormality, PR interval. Number 2, short PR interval. And now the reason for the short PR interval, the PR interval will be less than 3 millimeter width. 3 millimeter of width will be the PR interval. Now the PR interval will get shortened Very obviously, it will get shortened when the atrial impulse bypass the AV node. Bypass the AV node, so that will be, so if atrial impulse bypass AV node, AV node is the physiology conducting tissue. So how it will bypass? It will bypass the AV node with the help of some extra pathways in our body via accessory pathways. So atrial impulse bypass AV node via accessory pathways, and these accessory pathways conduct faster than AV node. Conduct faster than the AV node. So these pathways, let's understand these pathways. So this you can draw the diagram also, because many questions come on this PR interval shortening and the name of the syndromes. So come to the first one, and first one is this pathway. So you can see clearly atria, AV node. You can make the diagram. You can draw the diagram. Atria, AV node, bundle of hairs, and from bundle of hairs, the impulse goes to right ventricle and the left ventricle. So this is the, look at the red one. Above is atria, AV node, bundle of hairs, right ventricle, left ventricle. Now the red one is the accessory pathway. So you can see the atrial impulse is bypassing the AV node, and it is going to the bundle of hairs. So in this scenario, what will happen? Both the ventricle will get depolarized simultaneously. Remember, bundle of hairs is a common pathway, and from that common pathway, the impulse will go to both the ventricles simultaneously. So, in this condition, the atrial impulse is bypassing the AV node, and both ventricles are getting depolarized simultaneously. This pathway is not bundle of Kent. This pathway is known as James pathway. This is known as the James pathway. And how does the ECG look like? The ECG will look like, comparing with a normal one in this scenario. Both the ventricle will depolarize simultaneously. Yes, very nice. It is a Long-Ganong-Levine syndrome. So there will be the diagnosis of this syndrome will be, this is a James pathway attaching the bundle of the hairs, bypassing the AV node, atrial impulse bypass it. So Long-Ganong Levine syndrome. Long-Ganong-Levine syndrome. This is the name of the syndrome. So how does the ECG get affected here? So here in this case, if I will draw the ECG, this is the P wave. P wave will be normal. P wave will be normal, and this I will draw the normal ECG. Say dotted lines represent a normal ECG. So here is the QRS complex. Suppose this is a normal ECG. So what happens in Long-Ganong-Levine syndrome? impulse from the atria goes very fast to bundle of his, and both the ventricle will be depolarized simultaneously. So what will happen? The QRS complex will come early. So this will be the ECG. This will be the ECG. Whole QRS complex will move towards the P wave along with its T wave. Along with its T wave. So in this ECG, the problems are PR interval is shortens. So PR is reduced. PR interval is reduced, and QRS complex is normal. Normal in width, because both ventricles are depolarizing simultaneously. It is not widened. It will become wide when the ventricle are not depolarizing simultaneously. So this LGL syndrome will have a short PR interval, and QRS complex will be normal, exactly normal. So the QRS along with the T wave is shifted towards the P wave, shifted towards the P wave. Now, the disease etiology is in our heart. There are some extra pathways, and these extra pathways are known as the accessory pathway. And one of the accessory pathway is James pathway, which joins the atria with the bundle of his, bypassing the AV node. Bypassing the AV node. So the PR interval gets shortens, and rest of the ECG will be normal. QRS breath will be normal. Now, this is the Lon-Ganong-Levine syndrome. Higher, normally both ventricle depolarize simultaneously. That is a normal physiology, that the impulse of the ventricle come from bundle of his, and both ventricle are depolarizing at the same time. Normal physiology. Now, coming to the yes, these are pathological, and they can cause arrhythmias. They make re-entry loops also, they can cause arrhythmias. Now come to the next one, and in the next one visualize carefully and see the difference from the first one. Check in with the lead same. We will check in lead 2. Treatment of LGL syndrome. Treatment is radio ablation of these pathways. Radio ablation of these pathways. Impulse never pass through the AV node. Very good question. This is a very good question. Impulse enter the AV node, but it is not able to cross the AV node because the distal part is in a refractory period. So it will not go beyond that. Yes, it causes the tachycardias or the arrhythmias. Now come to the next syndrome, and the next syndrome is, you can look the difference from the previous diagram. Here the atrial impulse bypass the AV node and it go to the ventricle, not to bundle of his. It goes to the ventricle. So this is typically known as bundle of Kent. Bundle of Kent. Bundle of Kent. So this bundle of Kent, most common site is left atria to left ventricles. Most common site. Bundle of his is also bypassed. So what difference will be there? So the difference here will be, remember, left ventricle will be depolarized earlier. Then right ventricle. This is obvious because the impulse will go to the left ventricle much earlier. So there is this terminology which is known as pre-excitation of left ventricle. There is a pre-excitation of the left ventricle. and it is the left ventricle muscles which get pre-excited. So pre-excitation of left ventricle muscles. So how does the James pathway get activated? From atrial impulse? Atrial impulse goes through the James pathway and it will get activated from those impulse. Now this syndrome is known as, diagnosis is, yes, it is known as Wolff Parkinson White syndrome. Yes, WPW syndrome. Wolff Parkinson White syndrome. So is it okay now? All right. So what we'll do, because of yesterday's experience, towards the end of the class there was a problem of streaming. So what we'll do, we'll take a 2 minutes of break here, and so that streaming will be fine at the end of the class. So just a 2 minutes of break to all the centers, to all the students who have logged in, just a 2 minutes of break so that we can do our class smoothly till the end. So just a 2 minutes break. All right, let's restart. Now everything is okay now. Audio video is okay now. All right. So here in the WPW syndrome, this I will write down the steps of the impulse which is coming to the ventricle for depolarization and how it will impact the ECG findings. So recalling it once again, there is a accessory pathway. Accessory pathway are congenital anomalies. They are present in some individuals. So there is presence of a bundle of the Kent, which is the responsible for the WPW syndrome. So here what happens, that the impulse from the atria go to the ventricle directly. So there is a pre-excitation of left ventricle muscles. So what will happen? Look carefully the sequence of events. The sequence of the event will be: number one, left ventricle. Number one, left ventricle starts depolarization early. But very importantly, this impulse goes to the ventricle muscles, not in the specialized conducting tissue of Purkinje fibers. So left ventricle start depolarization early in WPW syndrome, but this is a muscle to muscle depolarization. So this depolarization of left ventricle, so now left ventricle depolarization proceeds relatively slowly. Reason, as it is muscle to muscle depolarization. A physiological fundamental. When the impulse propagate through a specialized conducting pathway like Purkinje fiber, it travel very fast. It proceed very fast. But when it is going from muscle to muscle, it is a slow progression, relatively a slow progression. So very importantly, left ventricle start depolarization early, but that waveform of depolarization will proceed slowly because it will be a muscle to muscle depolarization. So what will happen? Till that time, normal number third sequence, by that time normal impulse from AV node, by that time normal impulse from the AV node now reaches the rest of the ventricles, now reaches Purkinje fibers and depolarize rest of ventricles. So these are the steps. See the sequence of the step. The LV left ventricle will start depolarization early, but that is a muscle to muscle depolarization. It will progress slowly. By that time, normal impulse via AV node reaches the Purkinje fibers and depolarize rest of the ventricles. So number 1 step, number 2 step, number 3 step. These are the steps of depolarization. Yes, Purkinje fiber are way faster, but the impulse from the AV node reaches those fibers relatively slowly in cases of WPW syndrome. So what will happen? Let's make the diagram now. So the diagram of the WPW syndrome, this is P wave, this is dotted line, this is QRS complex, this is T wave, this is a T wave. So I will take the color coding from above. Color coding. So what happens? From the atria, impulse have two routes. First route was the accessory pathway, due to which it reaches the ventricle very fast, and second pathway is AV node pathway, where it is traveling slowly. It is traveling slowly through the AV node. So what will happen? The left ventricle will depolarize early, but that depolarization will spread slowly, relatively slowly. So there will be a left ventricle depolarization which will be seen like this. Red one. There is a slanting wave, a depolarization wave which proceed relatively slowly. So there will be a slanting depolarization wave, and this wave is known as the delta wave. This is due to pre-excitation of left ventricle. Pre-excitation of the left ventricle. AV node depolarization also occur in LGL syndrome, but that does not go beyond the AV node due to the refractory period of bundle of His. That I will make the diagram once again there. So this is a delta wave which will be due to the pre-excitation of the left ventricle, and this is rest of the ventricle depolarized by impulse from the normal AV node. So this is rest of ventricle depolarization from impulse via AV node, bundle of His, Purkinje fibers. So this will be the diagram, this will be the diagram here. So the rest of the ventricle will be depolarized from impulse via the AV node, bundle of his and Purkinje fiber, completing the QRS complex like this. QRS complex. Yes, very nice. There will be a wide QRS complex because the ventricles are not depolarized simultaneously. There was some pre-excitation of the left ventricle early. Yes, some part of the left ventricle it will reach. So it will reach some part of the left ventricle. So if I will see the changes of WPW syndrome here, the changes of WPW syndrome will be, number one change is PR interval is short. PR interval is short, no doubt. There is a wide QRS and very importantly delta wave. Very importantly delta wave. Amplitude of QRS decrease in WPW syndrome, hardly any change in the amplitude. Good question, but hardly any change to call it as ki it is a pathological decrease in the amplitude of the amplitude. Now as the question asked is why the impulse does not affect in LGL syndrome. So look at the LGL syndrome, what exactly is happening in LGL syndrome. So normal impulse as well as so you look closely here in the LGS syndrome, the impulse of James pathway goes to the bundle of his, it will go retrogradely as well as it will enter the AV node. Normal impulse also enter the AV node and these two impulse cancel each other. So the normal impulse is not able to cross the AV node because another impulse is going from below. So that will cancel it. So usually in LGL the normal impulse does not reach the ventricle, so this is the reason here. Yes, it can cause re-entry also. If this re-entry impulse get a chance to go into the atria, then a re-entry loop will be created. Very nice, that we will discuss in the arrhythmia sections. Now coming to, so these were the PR interval pathologies. Short PR interval, important questions usually asked in your exams. Now come to the number 7 basic. Number 7 basic is the QRS complex. In LGL syndrome, distance between the T wave and next P wave will increase. Very good. It will increase because QRS and T are shifting towards the first P wave. T wave in WPW syndrome will be okay. Usually it remains okay. Now coming to the next basic, and next basic is the QRS complex. So QRS complex is one of the very important wave of ECG. Indeed, out of all the intervals and waves, maximum question come in the QRS complex. And we understood in the first lecture that ventricle depolarization is responsible for QRS complex. So we will discuss QRS under 3 headings: width, morphology, axis. So these are the 3 important components of the QRS complex. So starting with the first one, normal width of QRS complex. Normal things. So the normal width range from 0.08 to 0.11 second. 0.08 to 0.11 second is the normal width. So this normal width is due to, so this is a very short width. This is a very short width. This is due to simultaneous depolarization of both ventricles. Simultaneous depolarization of both the ventricles. This will produce a normal width. Also, whenever normal width comes, this is equivalent to narrow QRS complex. So narrow is not an abnormality. Whenever narrow QRS complex is given, assume it to be a normal width of QRS. Normal width of QRS. So it range from 0.08 to 0.11 second, because both the ventricles are getting depolarized simultaneously. So the time taken is less. Time taken will be less. So the causes of wide QRS complexes will be when there is a, now these are the hints given to you and your answers sequentially. So how we measure it? We measure it from the start of the QRS till the end of the QRS, So the wide QRS complex means it is more than equal to 0.12 second, that is more than equal to 3 mm. More than equal to 3 mm will be the width in the mm. Less than 3 mm is a normal width. Now, causes of wide QRS. So there are wide QRS causes, in which the number one is when there is a late depolarization of the right ventricle. So obviously QRS will develop, it will take more time to develop. Very easy answer, right bundle branch block. Right bundle branch block. Now, second, late depolarization of left ventricle. Late depolarization of the left ventricle, it is left bundle branch block. Left bundle branch block. Now, third one, let me see who can give me the correct answer. There is early depolarization of left ventricle. Very good. Early depolarization of the left ventricle we have done just above. Yes, it is WPW syndrome. Now understand carefully. When there is a pacemaker below bundle of His, when there is a pacemaker below bundle of His, so that pacemaker below bundle of His, what it will do? It will depolarize one ventricle first, followed by the other ventricle. So pacemaker below bundle of His for the ventricles. So for example, Purkinje fibers. Purkinje fiber, yes, idioventricular rhythm. So the pacemaker is below the bundle of the His, so the common pathway is not there. So that means, say this is AV node, this is bundle of His. So remember, If the impulse is coming from AV node and bundle of phase, it will spread to both the ventricles simultaneously, and both ventricle depolarize simultaneously, QRS normal. But if below this line, below the bundle of phase, if the impulse is originating, pacemaker is there for the ventricles. So remember, it will either originate from right ventricle, so that pacemaker will depolarize the right ventricle first, followed by left ventricle, and vice versa. Vice versa. So if pacemaker is below bundle of phase, that is a Purkinje fibers. Now, dyselectrolemia by inhibiting sodium channels of ventricles impair ventricle depolarization. They will impair the ventricle depolarization. So, by inhibiting sodium channels of the ventricle, all of you must be knowing that sodium channels are responsible for depolarization of the ventricles. Sodium channels. So if those channels are inhibited, depolarization is impaired and QRS become wide. This is a very important electrolyte imbalance, that is hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia. There will be a delta wave in cases of a pacemaker. No, a pacemaker below a bundle of phase will not cause the delta wave. Delta wave is specific for only WPW syndrome. WPW syndrome. Now coming to, so these were the questions on the width of the QRS complex. Now come to the QRS morphology, a very important aspect of the QRS. As yesterday I got messages ki why there is a negative wave in the QRS, why there is a positive wave in the QRS. So understand carefully, the QRS morphology is different in different leads. For example, QRS morphology will be different in V1 lead, which is right of the sternum. QRS morphology in the left side leads will be totally different, because they are looking at the heart from different angles. So the morphology will be different in different leads. So for ventricle pathologies, usually we take the chest leads, because chest leads are directly placed over the heart. Now we will understand how this morphology is created, how this morphology of the QRS is created. For this, we need to understand the physiology accurately, the depolarization of the ventricle accurately. So what I will do, I will make table, I will make the diagram, I will make the ECG, and numbering will match on each aspect of understanding. So first is normal sequence of the depolarization of ventricles. Number 1. If I have written number 1 in the table, that number 1 correspond to the event in the diagram and in the ECG. Now what I will do, I will take a coronal section of the heart of the ventricle muscles, coronal section, and understand this physiology. So here is the heart. You can draw this diagram. So look at this coronal section. I have made a coronal section of the heart to understand the normal sequence of depolarization. to understand the normal sequence of depolarization. So here is the impulse coming from bundle of his, coming from the bundle of his, and green color are the conducting pathways, the Purkinje system of these. Now what I will do, I will take the extreme leads. One lead is the V1, so this is V1 positive, it is going into the positive pole of V1, and here the positive pole of say V6 or V5 or the V5. So this is the diagram. V1 is here and V6 is in the mid axillary line. So I am taking extreme of the leads, placement, and see how does the QRS complex will be seen. Starting with the normal sequence of depolarization. Normal sequence of the depolarization, number one part which depolarize first is the septum. From left to right. Left side to the right side. Septum is the first part to depolarize in the end. What is depolarization? Depolarization is the movement of positive charge inside the cell. Positive charge inside the cell. So this is the event number one here. Number one event. Septum is getting depolarized. Septum is getting depolarized. So in a V1, ECG needle will be at the baseline. Default position is the baseline till it detect any current or till it detect any movement of the charges. So what will happen in a V1, number one event of ventricle depolarization will be seen as a positive deflection. Needle will deflect positively because the current is going towards the V1. So it will show a positive deflection. Number one event, positive deflection. Why left to right? It is physiological. It is physiological that septum is depolarized from the left bundle. And the septum is a very small area, a very thin area, so it produces a less current deflection. Septum is very thin, produces a less overall amplitude of the current. And same thing in V6. So same event in V6. Let's see how it will be seen. Needle will be in the baseline, and whenever this event take place, needle will go in a downward direction. Number one, it will go downward. Now coming to the next part to get depolarized. Next part to depolarize is number 2. Right ventricle plus left ventricle free walls. From endocardium to epicardium. Endocardium to epicardium. This we have discussed yesterday. And they will depolarize almost simultaneously. They will depolarize simultaneously. Why the vector is going towards the right? Because the septum depolarized from the left to right. Because the septum take the impulse from the left bundle. Now, this event will be number 2 event almost simultaneously. Free walls, endo to epicardium. Number 2 depolarization. And whenever two events are taking place simultaneously, larger event is manifested. So the net 2 is in this direction, and left ventricle free wall is quite a, it generate quite a good current, it generate quite a good current. So there will be the number 2 event. Now you can assess in V1 how it will be manifested. The needle will go downward for number 2 event. So needle will go in a downward direction like this. Same number 2 event will be manifested in V6 as a positive event. Needle will go upward. So it will show upward deflection like this. Number 2 event, upward deflection. Now number 3rd event. Number 3rd event is posterior wall depolarization from endo to epicardium. Why the net is in the left direction? Yesterday we did that whenever 2 events are taking place simultaneously, the larger event will be manifested, and the larger event is obviously left ventricle, not the right ventricle. So it will go towards the left ventricle side, away from the V1. And if the depolarization or positive ions are going away from the V1, it will show a negative deflection that we have done in the basics earlier. Now, posterior wall depolarization will be taking place from endo to epicardium, and posterior wall is a part of left ventricle. Posterior wall is a part of a left ventricle. Why negative is so big in amplitude? Because the left ventricle vector is huge. Left ventricle generate a good current, a large amount of current. If large amount of current is going away from V1, so the depth will be more. And similarly in V6, the height will be more, the positive component will be more, because free wall generate a huge current. They generate a huge current. Now come to the 3rd event. The 3rd event is posterior wall of the left ventricle. Posterior wall is the left ventricle side. So endo to epicardium, this will be the event. Look at the event. Endo to epicardium of the posterior wall. Number 3rd event. Tail is the endocardial surface, and arrowhead is the epicardial surface of posterior wall, of the posterior wall. Now coming to number 3rd event, how it will get manifested in V6. You can very well see the number 3rd event. Look at the arrow. Endo to epicardium of posterior wall. Number 3rd event. So it will going away, it is going away from the V6, it is going away from the V6, so there will be a negative deflection. Below the baseline, negative deflection below the baseline. The apex will come in the number 2 event only. So I have taken all these things, and it will come in the number 2 events only. So number 3rd event in a V6 will be a negative one. It is going away because it is endo to epicardium. So visualize this surface. Tail of number 3rd is the endocardium of posterior wall, and arrowhead is the epicardial surface of the posterior wall. So it is going away from V6. While in V1, this event is not detected by V1 because it is far away from V1, as posterior wall is far away from the V1. So this event is not detected by the V1. So what will happen when there is no further event which is detected? Needle have a tendency to come to the baseline. That is a baseline. It will come automatically. When there is no further event which is detected, because it is far away, posterior wall is far away from the V1. So this will be the ECG here, and in the V5 or V6 the needle will come automatically to the baseline when there is no further event, and this will complete the ECG of V6. ECG of V6. Posterior wall, yes, it is mainly by the left ventricle. Why not number third? Number third event is going away towards the scapula, because posterior wall, endocardium, epicardium. So it will go towards the epicardial side. Why not number third in a horizontal plane? This is going away from the V6 side. Now coming to the nomenclature of these QRS complexes. All right. So come to how these QRS complexes are named. QRS complex is a general term, but you should be very precise is naming these waves. So there are 4 steps. Why the third wave not detected by V1? Because V1 is here and posterior wall is near the left scapula. So this is very far away. So it is not detected. It is not detected by V1. Now come to the step number 1 of nomenclature and name of the wave. Name of the wave. So the step number 1 is always whenever you are seeing the QRS complex, first step is identify first positive wave. This will be your first step. Identify the first positive wave. And this first positive wave, you name this as R wave. You call this as R wave. And small r if amplitude appears small. So identify the first positive wave of the QRS complex and call this as a R wave, and write a small letter when relatively it is appearing small. But technically precisely we call it as small r when the height is less than 5 mm. But there is no need to remember that. That will be very obvious from the examples that we will do if the amplitude is relatively small. Now come to the step number 2. So step number 1 is always identify a first positive wave of QRS and call that as a R wave. Now if there is negative wave before R, so first identify a positive wave, so that call as a R wave, and if there is a negative wave before R, you call this as Q wave. small q if depth small, if depth is small. Now third step, if there is negative wave after r, call this as S wave. It will be known as a S wave. Number 4 step is if second positive wave call this as R dash wave. Second positive will be known as the R dash wave. So these are the nomenclature principles, the steps of nomenclature. How small? Less than, this is only defined for the R wave, less than 5 mm in height, call this as small r. But that will be obvious from the examples. So if you have understood this step, now let's do the quiz for you and name of these waves, and that will be the examples. So let's come to the examples of nomenclature. There are I think 9 diagrams in these examples. So first one, so this is the first one. What will you call this as? You will call this as only the first positive wave is there. So yes, correct answer, R wave. Correct. This is R wave. Now second example. What will you call this wave as? Remember, normal height of the QRS complex depend on in which lead you are seeing, and that we will discuss in the abnormalities. So next one is, this will be known as, always identify the first positive wave and it is a R wave. So this is known as, this wave is R wave. There is no negative before R, no Q, but after the R there is a negative wave, and this is known as small s. Yes, capital R, small s. Be very precise. Now, correct. Capital R, small s, because S wave appear a small, relatively small. Now, come to the third example. Let me see who can give me the correct answer. This was the QRS complex that we have seen in lead V1. A normal QRS complex. So this normal QRS complex, what name will you give this wave? Yes, this will be known as, the first positive wave is a relatively a small wave, so call it as small r, and the S wave appear very deep, so this will be known as capital S. Yes, small r, capital S. Very nice. Now next example. This was the wave which was lead V6 normal. This was the lead V6 normal. Yes, this will be known as, the first wave is positive wave, R wave, capital R. Before that, small q. After that, small s. Small q, capital R, and S wave. Now, come to the next example, and the next example I am taking this example. This is just for an example. What will be this complex known as? This one. This one. It is not QRS. This is the first wave is a R wave, second wave is a S wave, and the third wave is R dash wave. R dash wave. Second positive. Second positive. So R S R dash. RS R dash. Very nice, very nice. So these are the examples of the QRS complex, how you will do the nomenclature. So with this we finish with the today's class, and then we will continue tomorrow same time 7 p.m. and do revise your notes, and if there is any doubts, those doubts we can discuss under the same old thread which I have created, that is the ECG thread, where you can ask the question from the classes. And if there is any further doubts, you can ask me on my email address. And for visualization, and of course on the DAMS club you can ask your doubts, and till then you can revise, study. And one more advice, do read your physiology also. Do read your physiology also to make the concepts clear. So we'll finish with the class here. Class is over. Class is over.